Welcome to Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, a show to make your survivorship an easier journey by providing information and advocating for you. A show to help practitioners and their level of performance. This is the Croc Podcast. Here is your host, Dr. E. And alongside him to share some hope and inspiration from the Have Faith, Let It Begin podcast, co-host Angel Santana.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Croc Podcast. I am Dr. Tommy Anelli, and I am, as always, humbled and honored that you have chosen to be with us today. Today's podcast is a very special one and very important subject, I believe. It's about a question. It's about a question that I hear all the time in the clinic. It doesn't come in the beginning when we first meet. It doesn't come in the middle of our consultation. It usually comes at the end of a very long and emotionally charged visitation. We've already gone over your scans and your data. We've reviewed your pathology. We went over your staging. We've gone over your prognosis. We've talked about your options, and we've talked about the side effects. And then the room gets quiet, and you look at me straight up, right, eye to eye, and you say to me, "Hey, doc, what would you do if you were me?" I picked this topic many weeks ago because the question just keeps on coming up, and I thought there's got to be a podcast here. There has to be a lesson. But I kept on putting it away and pushing it away because it felt too much like the shared decision-making podcast that we've done in the past, and we've done such a great job, I think, Angel, with this subject, which is such an important subject for our survivors. But I thought I was being redundant. I thought I was just repeating myself. And the question just kept on haunting me, and it kept following me. And it was almost as if over the last couple of weeks, every day, a patient would say to me, "Hey, doc, what would you do if you were me?" So I had to chew on this subject because obviously God, my creator, my higher power, was trying to tell me something. And we all know that everything happens for a reason. So I chewed on this topic like my dogs chew on their toys. And I chewed on it and I chewed on it. And I finally had an epiphany. So what I finally realized was this question really isn't about shared decision making. It is much deeper. It's really about shared responsibility. It's about that understanding, that partnership that a provider has with their survivors. And it's this partnership, this contract that we enter into from the moment that we meet. And it's a question that has very deep implications. And I hope that we hit on those implications tonight. And it happens on so many different deep levels that not only I decided, should we do this podcast? I decided we had to do this podcast. Angel Santana, your thoughts before we get into the meat of the matter.
I think anytime we do, and welcome to the Croc Nation, to everybody for another Sunday edition. Listen, I think any episode that we do that allows these people, these patients, these survivors, an opportunity to relate to what we put out there is a home run, to use your baseball analogies. Anytime that we can come together and provide someone with a knowledge that will say, "Wow, you know what? I needed to hear this today." And I think that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And thank you for the baseball analogy because that's exactly where I'm going. So I know I'm dating myself by going through DVD technology, but if you were watching Game 6 of the 1986 World Series between the New York Metropolitans and the Boston Red Sox, and you had a DVD player and you taped that World Series game, and it came to the part where Mookie Wilson is at bat and he hits this little dribbler that goes between the legs of the first baseman, Bill Buckner, number 6, and Mookie runs to first base, and Ray Knight comes around third base and scores.
Little roller along first, behind the man. It gets slow Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
The winning run, and the Mets go on to win the World Series in Game 7. If you had that DVD, you would put it on that setting where you would go frame by frame and you would watch the ball slowly, 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 and finally go through Bill Buckner's legs. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do a Bill Buckner. We're going to slow down the question and we're going to break it down into 5 parts. And I hope by the end of 5 parts, our survivors will really get some great, what would you say, some great derivatives from this podcast, because the question is not a medical question. It's a question really about our survivors' vulnerability. It's about our survivors' fear. It's really about the weight that a survivor feels when making a decision that's so impactful and that may be life-threatening or maybe life-affirming. So when our survivors ask that question, they're not asking me for statistics. What they're asking me for is, Doc, am I about to make a mistake? Can you help me carry this decision? And quite frankly, it is a question that deserves an answer. So let's take our time and let's unpack it. So we have 5 sections. We're going to talk about 5 things that I think will be very helpful. So these are the nuances that could either make this question turn into a life-changing question. Someone start a conversation that can really turn into something very spectacular if it's done correctly. If it's done incorrectly, we could basically lose this amazing opportunity to connect with our survivors and make them feel safe and make them feel that the weight of the world is not on their shoulders alone. It's a shared responsibility. It's not all on them. So first, we're going to talk about what I call the gray zone. So we talk about this on the podcast all the time. We talk about binary decisions, which is just a fancy psychobabble term for either having a decision that has a right answer or a wrong answer. So here's an example. Hey, doc, what would you do if you were me? So a patient comes in with a burst appendix. Say, hey, doc, should I have this operation that's going to take out my burst appendix? Or should I just let this burst appendix stay there and then I'll die of peritonitis in about 2 days? So that's really not the kind of question that, I wish life was that simple. I wish that when our survivors came to me and asked me these simple questions, I would be able to say, no, dummy, you have to have the surgery or you're going to die. So life is certainly not that easy. But these decisions all reside on what we call the gray zone. So, and they also involve what I call trade-offs. So they involve the risks versus the benefits, right? So we talk about these questions about probabilities versus certainty. We talk about length of life versus quality of life. We talk about the aggressiveness of treatment versus the preservation of function. And when you're sitting in that gray zone, your brain, your survivor's brain, which is already frazzled from fear and the overwhelming stuff that's going on in your life, you want simplicity. You want someone to say to you, hey, doc, is this the right move? But the bad news is medicine doesn't work that way. It works in the world of probabilities. So if you choose option A, your recurrence score, your risk of recurrence may drop by 5%. If you choose option B, the toxicity risk may increase by 10%. If we add another treatment, survival might improve, but so might side effects. And these are not real questions about life and death. They're value-based. They're not binary. They're about you. They're not medical questions. And I'm going to try to make this concrete in very, very shortly by going through some real life examples. But for now, that's the gray zone. So there is no right, there is no wrong, there's only gray. The second tidbit I want to share with you is what I call inversion. And that's where, as your doctor, as your caregiver, we need now to create a space and room to turn the question around, because it's not about us. It is always about you as the survivor. So what we do with this inversion is we turn this question around. And this is really crucial. And this is a skill that you docs and nurses and care team have to learn. It's truly a skill, and you just have to practice it, and you have to really master it. So my first instinct is to turn the question around, to invert the question to my survivor. What matters to you most? Because here's the truth. If I answer quickly, I'm not answering as you, I'm answering as me. And I bring to the table my psychology, my tolerance for risk, my family situation. I am bringing to the table my professional exposure to all the worst case scenarios that I've seen in my 40 years of practice. I bring to you all of my 40 years of biases toward action or restraint and what to advise you. And that may not be a match for you. So I'm taking myself out and I'm putting you into the game, but I'm not letting you know it yet. So this is where the art is that we're slowly doing the inversion to put you in control, but we're not leaving you. We're still guiding you. We're with you. And two patients who have identical cancers may make opposite decisions. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Both may be correct. So I'm going to give you a brief example. We're going to get into more concrete examples in a minute. Say someone has a cancer where adding radiation could reduce your risk by 6%. Not 30%, not 50%, not 80%, only 6%. But radiation carries a 15% risk of a long-term side effect that might affect the quality of your life. Now, is that worth it? There is no universal answer. If someone says, my number one priority, doc, is to do everything possible to reduce risk, even if the benefit is very small, then I would say, okay, my answer would then lean toward doing the radiation. If someone says, my top priority, doc, is maintaining my current quality of life, and I'm comfortable accepting a small increase risk in my recurrence, then my answer to you is going to lean in the opposite direction. The data is the same, but the priorities are different. My answer is different. And that's why I pause before I answer. And that's where we come in and we invert that question. Number 3, isolation. Let's talk about really what this question is all about when you really boil it down and you really titrate it. What are you actually asking? It's an emotional question. The question is never really about the treatment. It's about loneliness. Cancer isolates people. Cancer makes people feel lonely. You could be in a room full of loved ones, family members, spouses, children, friends, neighbors, your pastor, your rabbi, whatever. You still feel like everyone is looking at you and putting the pressure on you to make the decision. They say all the right things. Your wife, your husband, they'll say to you, I will support whatever you think is best. Your children will say, Mom, Dad, we love you and we stand by you. Your friends will say something like, hey, bub, stay positive. We're with you. We got you. But at the end of the day, you're thinking, I don't know what's best. I've never done this before. That's when the question comes out. Doc, what would you do? It's not a request for an answer. It's a request for shared responsibility. It's a request for permission to make the decision. You guys are survivors. You deserve guidance. You deserve a recommendation. But there's a distinction, and this is the key. There's a difference between saying, I would do this, instead of saying, based on what you've told me, based on the question that I always ask people, tell me about yourself. Tell me what's your essence, based on what we know about what your internal philosophies are. I would recommend this. That shift changes everything. One removes agency, which we don't want to do. We want to make sure you're involved. You don't want to just do whatever your doctor tells you. That's paternalism. We're going to talk about that in a second. But by changing it and making what's your essence the most important thing, that strengthens and empowers you. So let's talk about point number 4. And I call this part the intersection. So this is about shared responsibility. In today's modern medicine, there are 3 general models, one of which I've already talked about and is antiquated, and that's called paternalism. That's in the days when I was, basically cutting my teeth, and it was like my mentors, the people who taught me, walked into a room with their stiff white coat and said, "Doc, this is what we're doing." And Doc couldn't say, "Well, what would you do if you were me, Doc?" There was no such thing. It was like you did what Dr. Sanfilippo told you to do, or what Dr. whoever told you what to do. And that was decades ago, and that's gone. The other is informational. I actually had a conversation today with a pretty famous doc in one of the big city hospitals today. And basically, we talked about a mutual case. And I went through my concerns about quality of life and the person, not the survivor. It wasn't about the data. It wasn't about the x-rays. It was about what was best for this person, this survivor. And all she could tell me was information. She just gave me the data and at the end said, "Well, I guess they'll have to decide what they want to decide." There was no interest in participating or helping guide the survivor to make that decision. And I thought that was very sad. So that's an informational model. And then it sounds like you're being empowered, right? It sounds like you're like basically getting to go into the candy store and picking anything you want. But you're going to if you're 4 years old, you're going to be confused and you're not going to know what to do. And you're going to end up eating too much candy and getting sick, right? So you need to have someone there to help guide you between the Swedish fish and the warheads, right? You need someone to help you with all that decision. The third model is the one we're talking about today, and that's shared responsibility, right? That's where evidence and personal values intersect each other. And it means basically, yeah, I'm going to tell you what the data shows. I will explain to you the magnitude of the benefits. I will explain to you the magnitude of the risks. I will tell you where the evidence is strong, and I will tell you where it's uncertain. And then what we do is we align that information, that intersection, we make that alignment between the decision and your goals and your essence. And that's the model that I believe in. That's the model that the Croc podcast believes in. So I said I was going to give you some examples. So let's give you 4 examples to make this concrete so you can understand. And maybe some of these examples actually fit you exactly as your survivorship, your personal cancer journey. So we'll imagine a patient with early stage cancer after surgery. The pathology shows a moderate risk of recurrence. Adjuvant therapy reduces the recurrence by a modest amount. Side effects are manageable. They're real, but they're manageable. And the guidelines support treatment, and the guidelines support no treatment. So they don't mandate this treatment. Number 2, low risk prostate cancer. You come in and doc goes over your PSA. Say your PSA is 6. Say your Gleason score is 6. You got 2 cores of Gleason 6. You have a PSA of 6. Your PET scan is negative except for prostate. Your MRI doesn't show any nodules. And your genomic scores are low risk. So your doctor says, "Okay, Joe, you could either do surgery, radiation, or we could just watch you," right? That's the scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, you just had a thyroidectomy done and your doctor tells you, "Oh, by the way, Sue, you got yourself a little case of papillary thyroid cancer. We could do nothing, or we could give you a big dose of iodine 131. Number 4, you just got diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. Your doctor tells you, "Well, you know what? We used to do 34 days of radiation. Now we're doing 22 days of radiation. But there's some studies in the city in the big tertiary care centers, we're only doing 5 days of radiation." And that's where the question comes. "Hey, doc, what would you do if you were me?" And here's how I respond. I don't know what I would do until I understand what matters to you most. If maximizing cure is your top priority, even if the benefit is modest, I would lean toward treatment. If minimizing side effects and preserving your quality of life is your top priority, I would seriously consider observation. It's an honest answer. It doesn't dodge the question. It reframes the question. And here's my pep talk. I'm speaking directly to you, to our survivors, to our heart, to our loved ones, to the ones. The reason why we get out of bed every day and get up and do what we do is because of you guys. So this is my words to you. You are allowed to ask that question. You are not weak for asking that question. You are not ignorant for asking that question. And you are not surrendering control by asking that question. You're asking for a partnership. And basically, this is the question that I want you guys to learn. I don't want you necessarily to have to say anymore, hey, doc, what would you do if it were you? I would want you to ask the following question instead. Based on what you know about me, doc, and what I value and what my essence is, what would you recommend? And if your doctor responds with silence or tries to deflect you, that's important information. Maybe that's not the guy or woman that you want taking care of you, because you deserve engagement, you deserve clarity, you deserve honesty. And let's address one last thing. This is called clay feet. This is part 5. You're coming to your doctors, to me, and you're asking me this incredibly intimate question about what I would do if I was sitting in your shoes. But what you have to realize is that we, as your doctors, your heroes, your gurus, your leaders, we all have clay feet. We're all human. We're made of flesh and blood. We are not robots. We are not made of metal. We are not immune to fear. We have seen worst case scenarios. We have seen aggressive recurrences. And believe me when I tell you this, beyond belief, that exposure, that history, our personal experience in the field shapes us. And sometimes we're going to lean toward overtreatment because we fear regret that, boy, I wish I had that to do again. I would have been more aggressive. Or we might sometimes lean toward restraint because we've seen these bad side effects. What I tell patients all the time is, even if I do everything perfectly, 4 of you out of 100 are going to be damaged by the treatments that we give you. And that causes a bias. It changes us. And that's why the importance of transparency and having this discussion, this deep of a level, is so important and critical. So if I say I favor this approach because I've seen difficult recurrences or difficult side effects, I put my answer in a context, and you deserve that context, because cancer decisions are never about certainty. They are about alignment. And I want to close by saying alignment is crucial. Alignment is necessary between the evidence of medicine and your identity. Alignment is necessary between the tolerance of risk and your life goals. Alignment between treatment intensity and your personal philosophy. So when someone asks, Doc, what would you do if you were me? I hear something much deeper. I hear, Doc, can you walk with me? And the answer should always be yes. But walking with someone is not the same as walking for them. The goal is not to replace your judgment. The goal is to strengthen your judgment. And I'll close with this. Cancer takes away control. It forces decisions that you have to make under pressure, and it introduces probabilities into lives that used to feel predictable. But you still have something powerful. You have your values, you have your priorities, you have a vision for what matters to you most. And the best oncology care should never override your essence. It should align with your essence. So the next time you find yourself wanting to ask, Doc, what would you do if you were me? Go ahead, ask it. but stay in the conversation long enough to explore why you're asking it. Because the right answer is not about copying your doctor's life. It's about choosing what fits your life. And that's where real empowerment lives. Angel Santana, please take us home with a nice spiritual take on today's podcast.
Well, very well said. And I agree with everything you stated this evening. Actually, well, we are taping at night, but so this will be during the day. But, I want to say this, cancer will try to isolate you, as you stated earlier. It may whisper lies that you are alone in this fight. And while those around you will try their very best to support you, family, friends, caregivers, there may still be moments that feel heavy and quiet, but hear this very clearly to everyone that's listening today. You, the survivor, are not alone. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your strength matters. And here at the Croc Podcast, Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, we stand with you. Shared responsibilities, shared strength, shared hope. We are here for you always.
Angel, I could not have ended it any better. So on behalf of Angel and the board of directors, we will end today with our Croc prayer and our hope for you. We wish every single one of you out there, all of our survivors, all of our providers, we wish you all a very long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Hey, Croc Nation, if today's message inspired you, please subscribe, download, and share this episode with your friends or someone who you believe needs it. Visit us at crocvip.com to connect, learn, and join the fight. Let's spread hope, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, we are not just a podcast, we are a movement.